Yeah, probably the biggest struggle is getting yourself out of bed and going to do another day of marketing. It's not fun at first, but and when you don't have any results, when you log into College Works and it just says zero sales, well, you got to think of the long term vision. It's like, hey, I got time, but right now I have to put in as much effort as possible. I can't go out there and market or do sales for 8 hours. I have to go do it for 10 hours. So it's pushing yourself to do those extra little things. And like how I said at the beginning, making those sacrifices and being excellent rather than just being good.
Thank you so much for listening to the show, and please share it with your friends. We are on a mission to help people understand what careers are and what careers are out there. And today we got a great show. Someone starting off in their career, someone that chose sales. And Jacob's going to talk about his path to his career in sales and what it really means to be in sales. He's going to talk about the job search process and how long it takes and how difficult it is, even if you got a great resume. And he's going to talk about developing pride in yourself as part of his definition of excellence. You can find Jacob at LinkedIn, Jacob Abdulmasih. Welcome to the show and welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Jacob, thank you so much for taking time away from your busy job down in beautiful San Diego. I'm assuming it's sunny today. It's not raining anymore down there?
No, sir. It is beautiful like always. We had a couple days of rain, which was surprising.
You get 20 days of rain and 345 days of beauty in San Diego. And Jacob moved from Chico all the way down to San Diego for his tech sales career. Thank you so much for making time for the show and being on the Edge of Excellence.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's been a while. I saw you at a wedding. I actually have talked about that wedding, maybe even on this show way back when, where everybody was wearing College Works blue because they had all worked at College Works. And what a cool experience that was to walk into a wedding where people didn't even work there anymore. And they're all wearing the color of the company that they worked at in college. And you and I spent a lot of time talking at that wedding. So I'm glad I have you on the show. But before I start rambling on too much, like I always do, I got to get your definition of excellence. What is your definition of excellence?
Yeah, excellence to me, it's defined by going above and beyond what your original goal is. I think a lot of people will set goals for themselves, but they have the capacity to do more. It's about sacrificing when you really don't want to. It's taking the extra steps beyond what you originally planned for yourself. And I think that's how you can define excellence. And it's being proud of yourself of what you've been able to achieve over time.
Oh, I love that. Proud of yourself. And you know what? Everybody should have that in their definition of excellence. I don't know if I've heard that. Everybody should have proud of yourself. It's first comes down to you. Are you proud of what you're doing? Are you proud of the results? Are you proud of the impact on the community, the people around you, your job, your family? Because if so, that might be an indicator that you're achieving or you're on the edge of excellence. I also love beyond your original goal. So you're adjusting your perception of how well you're doing, how well other people are doing around you, what is excellent as you're moving forward, and maybe even ratcheting up. It's that horizon. You're never quite there. You're always on the edge, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just about coming in hungry into any situation. Sometimes you're not going to want to do a particular job, but then you know that in the future it is going to help you. Something like College Works, it's extremely difficult, and most people that do it say how it's the most difficult thing they've ever done. But they also understand that how good it looks on a resume, the networking that you gain from it. So it's all these things that you have to do in order to really help yourself for the future.
Yeah, it's way more fun to kick it at home and watch every game and go to every party and drink every beer than go out and generate leads and do sales and deal with rejection and have to hire and fire and make your own money. So it's that sacrifice when you don't want to. And by the way, is there ever a sacrifice that you want? I don't think so. It's always when you don't want to. But maybe it's not a sacrifice. Maybe it's balance. Maybe it's long-term planning. Maybe it's thinking ahead. I love the proud of yourself. And, we're going to get into your career, a little bit of a different show today. You're at the start of your career, and we're going to use you to study the path to a full-time sales job. You chose sales and technology. You can choose sales in anything. You've had a few different, you had a car wash that you bought right out of school, which is super cool. You were an entrepreneur right away, selling car washes. You worked at College Works, selling paint jobs. Now you're in tech. So we're going to talk about that path. But before we do, let's go way, way, way back in time, like 6 years ago, to high school in Chico, California. Born and raised in Chico, went to Chico State, which was Playboy's Party School of the Year when I was in college. What was life like? What were you doing to get ahead? Did you know you needed to get ahead? Were you just fitting in? What was going on when you were in high school? Were you on the road to excellence or not really?
Yeah, definitely. I think in high school, not many people really think about what they want to do for a career. And so they don't take high school super seriously. But coming from a family of immigrants, they're really demanding people. You know, they expect you to kind of know what you want to do ever since you're a kid. And they always demanded, you know, good grades and to be able to go to the good school and to get the good grades there and to overachieve and achieve more than what other people are doing. So in high school, you know, I always knew ever since I was really a little kid that I wanted to run my own business. You know, my father, he runs one now, and elementary school, they like ask you like what you want to do for a living. And this is when you're just first starting how to learn how to write. And I was saying how I want to, you know, run a business like my dad. And so by the time I got into college, you know, freshman year, when somebody just walked into my door saying that, hey, there's an internship, get to run your own business, it's pretty cool. I was like, yeah, like I of course want to take that opportunity. It fit right into what I want to do. And by doing that, it really taught me a lot. But it most importantly taught me that I love communicating with people and building these relationships, which, you know, leads into sales. And that's why I like doing it so much.
Yeah. Interesting. You just kind of hit a not a pain point, but a marker for me, you know, that pressure. And I think about this a lot. I got a lot of super successful friends, and I think, wow, what pressure on their kids to be as successful as their parents. And I've got some really successful second and third generation friends where, you know, they're out there trying to kick butt and, you know, continue the legacy. And I think about the pressure just on kids today. I mean, I say kids, but, you know, people in their teens and 20s, you know, there's just so much going on with, we won't even get into social media, but I'm on a one-man journey to end Instagram. Just the pressure of, just the fake pressure of look as good as me, have as much fun as me, go on a vacation as me. And you're getting their best snapshots. They're not taking a picture of themselves laying in bed doing homework. They're not taking a picture of themselves when they don't go on a vacation. They're taking a picture of themselves on that beach that they went to for the vacation. And there's just so much pressure. Do you think that the pressure, and you said immigrant family, and you mentioned that a lot of immigrant families have this pressure to get the grades, the schools, and to know what you're doing and figure it out. Was that pressure good for you, or was it not so constructive for you?
No, I think it was constructive because I think without them, I wouldn't be able to achieve what I have done. You know, there's obviously thoughts of like, oh man, I want to quit this job because I don't like it. But it's not about whether or not you like it at the time when you're young. It's about achieving these goals and setting yourself up for the future. So, you know, it was a lot of constructive criticism that I got growing up. And, you know, it was really helpful. If they didn't push me to where I'm at, then I wouldn't be here without them.
Yeah, so I mean, I think pressure's good, and you know, I think this generation, the new Gen Z generation, your generation, has had to deal with a lot of stuff my generation didn't have to. When I was a kid, my parents didn't really pressure me at all. I think they were more kind of holding the reins, and I was like a bucking bronco. But I pressured myself. I wanted to kick everybody's butt around me, and I wanted to show everybody that I was better because I felt lesser, right? I had an ego issue then, and I still want to rub it in some of their faces, but I've gotten over it a little bit. So I guess you get pressure where you get it. Mine might not have been so constructive because it wasn't coming from my family. It was coming from outside, and I was, you know, processing it. You were getting it from your family, probably in a loving way and probably in a strategic way. And you figured out early that you wanted to own your own business. You've already owned your own business. So obviously it worked. You've already done a lot of stuff, and, you know, buying a business right out of college is kind of crazy. Good on you. So you're in high school, you're getting the grades, you got to figure stuff out. You're loving living in Chico, California, and you decide to go to Chico State. What did you do in high school that kind of set yourself apart so you could get into the Cal State and the UC system?
Yeah, I think it was just being a part of different activities. Like I loved basketball growing up. That was something I always did. So being able to be a part of the team, and then also taking like the AP classes. So, you take a test at the end of the year. I'm not sure if you know how it works, but you take a test, and if you pass it, you get credit towards college. And I was able to do enough of those classes and pass enough of those tests to where I was actually a semester ahead by the time I got into Chico State.
On the app, you have to list your AP classes, so they know that you're taking the hard classes. You got the sports, and I love that you said team, so you have this team interaction. You're doing the clubs and stuff too.
Yeah, so it was more or less clubs, but more towards sports. And by the time I was in college, being a semester ahead, it allowed me to pick up a minor in information systems and just do the 4 years. I didn't have to stay longer than that. But yeah, just staying involved, making a lot of friends throughout high school. It was, definitely a really fun time in high school. I know a lot of people sometimes didn't have the experience I had, so I was pretty grateful for having the people that were around me.
So you're having fun, you're focused on your future career, you're going above and beyond in the things you're doing, you're sacrificing when you don't want to, and you get into college, you're a semester ahead, and you get into finance, which I think finance is a wonderful major if you're of that mindset. Like my son's not a finance major, I'm not a finance major. We just don't think that way. We take a bunch of math classes, do pretty well. Stats kind of killed both of us. Econ was a little rough. Now I'm in business and it makes more sense now, but it took a few years. You're of the mindset, you go in with a finance major, you throw in this information systems minor. Was that because you knew one day you'd want to work at iMatrix and be out selling marketing platforms for businesses, or what drew you to information systems? Was that forward thinking or was it kind of accidental?
It was both. It was accidental because during high school, we actually went to Chico State and took a little class on the type of software that they're teaching us. And it was pretty interesting to me, but I didn't have that declared until my junior year, because I was like, looking back at it, I was like, I had a pretty fun time that day. I might as well try it out. I got nothing to lose. And, I ended up really liking it. And then, yeah, I was like, well, I do want to be in the field of technology. It's obviously a very lucrative business. It's where the world is going, is that you're going to need to understand technology if you want to do well.
Okay, so you kind of stumble across it. Someone opens the door. That's the first step. You got to be out there looking. You got to have options. You got to be trying different things out to figure out what you like and what you're good at. Then you find out, hey, I kind of like this and I'm kind of good at it. That's the second step. What's your unique ability? Something you're good at that you like. That's the definition of unique ability. Other people might be good at it and hate it. It's not a unique ability. Other people might like it and not be good at it. Not a unique ability, but you've got this unique ability in information systems. And then the capper is you got to stop and pause. Third step, think strategically. If you're good at making wooden tires, you got to stop and say, hey, there's no market for this. If you're good at, I don't know, making non-flying cars, it's not as good at being good at making flying cars. So you stop and you say, okay, I like this information systems. I'm good at it. I'm going to throw this in as a minor because technology is changing the world and it's going to open some doors. Finance, you probably wanted to go into banking or something like that. In finance, you're in sales. You're focused on your minor, not your major. So that's because life changed as you're going through 4 years, right? You came and worked with me and realized, shit, I'm pretty good at sales. It's one of my unique abilities. Is that what happened?
Yeah, definitely. So I really always enjoyed talking to people, but I never thought, oh, I want to go be a salesman. But through college works really helped me understand that this is something I love, building relationships with people. And I love talking to people and helping them out as much as helping me out, making money. And then, yeah, the technology side of it meshes really well being in the tech sales space. It's the best of both worlds for me. So it's just worked out pretty well.
And you still have the finance background. So, when you go to do real estate investment, let's say on the side, or you go to do stock investment, or you're looking at the market and the interest rates, it's not like that degree was a waste. That degree is going to come in handy as you move into the executive role, dealing with the CFO and the finance team and the accounting team, and it comes in handy on the side. So most people don't do their degree. I'm not a lawyer. I have political science and history. I'm definitely not a historian, although I do read a lot of history and watch a lot of history books. But that's just this wonderful major that maybe you're not using, but you'll be able to lean on for the rest of your life, right?
Oh, for sure. I think that down the line, when I do talk to these executives, and I'm going to be able to connect with them on a deeper level because I have that background. And then even further down the line, when I want to run my own business again, I can read financial statements. I understand what it needs to take in order to have profit and all these kinds of things that people who want to run their own business but then don't know how to run the numbers, they're going to have a lot more trouble doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you're working at iMatrix selling these clinics, a marketing platform and a marketing system that costs money. And you got to understand what's going on with interest in the world today, and what's going on with their costs and their profit margins, and what you're delivering as an ROI compared to other options that they have, and understand and crunch the numbers so the executive that you're talking to knows that you're bringing value, not just some random thing you're selling. Well, I think that's wonderful. And by the way, I just got to stop for a second. Jacob hooked me up on LinkedIn, I think 2 days ago, and I hadn't seen him for a while since that wedding, hadn't heard from him. And I thought, God, I love this guy. As we're talking right now, I'm reminded of talking to you at the wedding, talking in Cancun, talking at different events. God, I'm glad you reached out to me on LinkedIn. I love you're just like an energizing guy. So it's so nice to have you. Thanks again for making time for the show today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And I honestly didn't know I didn't have you on LinkedIn. I just ran across your profile and it says like connect. And I was like, I'm not connected with Matt Stewart. Like immediately pressed the button.
You know why? Because I don't connect with people on LinkedIn when they work in our business, because sometimes they try to steal people from our business. I wait till later. So that might be, you probably requested it a while ago and I just had never said yes. I don't tell people that, but now everybody knows that listens to the show. So let's talk a little bit just about the path. I mean, you're a little bit younger than a lot of people that come on the show, but I think it's interesting to talk about the path. So you're in college, you find these unique abilities, you've got these focuses, you knew you needed to get ahead. One of our people comes into your classroom, you decide to do this weird painting thing, the College Works thing. Why did you do the College Works thing, and and most people that listen to this show, there is no College Works option for them. So they could be thinking about a really tough internship, or they could be thinking about a real world internship where you're dealing with real world issues and not shadowing or not doing clerical work, but really in the role, in the leadership role. And there may be one or two other internships they can find out there. But why did you choose to do such a hard internship? What was going on in your mind when you're in college? Was it that strategic outlook, looking far? And you mentioned you wanted to run a business and you didn't want to be a salesman, but at College Works always starts with marketing and sales. So why did you choose that to kind of set yourself apart, and how did that work out for you?
Yeah, I think with College Works, what makes it so unique is your ability to gain knowledge in all different aspects of business. So when it came down to it, I always knew that in order to make myself unique, I can't just graduate college without having any real world experience. So I had to add that to my resume pretty early on. And I was just lucky that I got that opportunity at 18 to run my own house painting business and then come back at 19 and be a district manager.
How old were your employees? You're 18 years old. How old were your employees?
My painters, they were probably like 20, 21.
Okay.
So a little bit older than me. I don't think I had anybody that was younger than me as a painter.
But pretty cool. You're the boss at 18. All right.
Yeah. So again, it just has to do with me knowing that when I graduate from Chico State, that's not a very high level school, that I need to still be unique in a certain way. There's a lot of people that graduated in finance from Chico State, but not a lot of those people are actually looking towards their future. They're doing a lot more partying rather than internships. And, I had to pick one, and I knew that doing a really difficult internship would pay out a lot more in the long run.
Interesting that you said it that way. So I went to UCSB. number 32 in the country. Chico's probably 100, right? And there's
Yeah, maybe even lower. Who
yeah,
knows?
and there's thousands. So there's thousands of schools, but it's a realistic outlook. If you're in Harvard, different companies recruit out of Harvard than UCSB. And my brother used to work at Microsoft. Microsoft only recruits in the top 10, maybe 12 universities. They're not even showing up to do an interview at UCSB. And UCSB is a great school. Chico, there's companies that aren't going to show up there. But maybe you go to Chico because of economics and you're living at home. Maybe you go to Chico because of exposure. And you asked me if I know about how the application process works. Yes, because I work with high school kids and help them get into college as a hobby of mine. So it's my kids' friends and my friends' kids. And, I'm constantly looking at the applications and I'm helping these kids. Some kids don't have the help. That's why I do it. Some kids are on their own. It's harder to get into those top-notch schools if you don't have somebody looking at your essays. So who knows why, but you get to wherever you're going to school. And maybe it's in Michigan, maybe it's in Kansas, maybe it's in California. But if you're not in a top 20 school, which most people aren't, you've got to figure out how to set yourself apart. So you realize, I got to do something to really set myself apart. You realize a lot of people are screwing up. You realize I want some opportunities that maybe aren't just thrown at me at Chico, that I need to kind of wave a flag and say, hey, throw the opportunity at me. And serendipitously, you find this weird business thing to do. And then you go out there and you do the sales and you have the employees, and then you got promoted. And at 19, you get to be one of the mentors then? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. And what did you take out of that role that you didn't get out of the initial branch manager internship role?
Well, as a DM, you are mentoring people that are trying to also run their own business rather than me just managing painters, teaching them how to spray a wall. I'm now teaching these people how to do the sales. And I only became confident in my sales ability as a district manager because I was now having to teach people how to do it. I did well as an intern doing the sales because I was just able to connect with people on a peer-to-peer level. But the actual sales cycle was something that I learned much more as a district manager.
Yeah, so you've got the VP help too. So district manager, you're constantly have this person kind of helping, I would say looking over your shoulder, but that sounds wrong. Helping lift you up, helping you do a better job, helping you mentor these other people and helping teach you how to be a better mentor. And I've heard that many times before, that if you teach something, it firms in your own mind and you become more competent in that area. What was your biggest struggle that you had? And I'm pausing on CollegeWorks here because it's recruiting season so people can listen to this. We're going to get into stuff for people that can't go to CollegeWorks. But think about struggles in business. If you can't do CollegeWorks or you're never going to do CollegeWorks, listen to the struggle that he had. Apply it to your own life. If you're in your car listening at 1.5 speed right now, what was the biggest struggle you had at CollegeWorks? How'd you get through it? And what'd you learn? And how do you apply it to your new job today?
Yeah, probably the biggest struggle is getting yourself out of bed and going to do another day of marketing. It's not fun at first, and when you don't have any results, when you log into CollegeWorks and it just says 0 sales, well, you got to think of the long-term vision. It's like, hey, I got time, but right now I have to put in as much effort as possible. I can't go out there and market or do sales for 8 hours. I have to go do it for 10 hours. So it's pushing yourself to do those extra little things. And like how I said at the beginning, making those sacrifices and being excellent rather than just being good.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. There's so many things that I look at the board and I have zeros on. And I don't think, oh my God, this is horrible. Or so many things that I start moving forward with. And, I get to a point where I'm just nothing's really happening. And I just think of that as a phase. It's like just a period of the process. But when it's the first time, it feels like it's all going to come crashing down. So part of that experience is learning that, okay, now I'm at iMatrix, I haven't gotten any leads yet. Now I'm at iMatrix, I haven't closed anything yet. Okay, this is part of the process. I don't need to, lose my confidence. I don't need to close down. I don't need to give up on myself. I just have to get through this phase to get to the successful phase.
Yeah, definitely. You can come in hungry into any situation, but it's staying motivated. People have different learning curves. I was able to, close my first 3 out of 5 estimates as an intern, but then I hit a huge slump for like 3, 4 weeks. I was like, wow, I can't sell anything. And you just got to get back to the basics and keep your head up and stay motivated. That's a big thing with sales, is that there are just going to be times it's cyclical. So you just have to be able to keep going and looking at the long-term vision.
Yeah, failure is a phase. And someone on my podcast said, when you're at your low, that's when you really, really realize how much you can do. If you get through it, if you've never had the low, you don't know what the high is. But maybe that, I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking maybe that was one of my big CollegeWorks takeaways, because I sucked at everything at CollegeWorks. And now whenever I suck, I just think, okay, I'm going to be pretty good later. You get that confidence. And there are people that give up. They make it to where you were in that 3 weeks. They're like, okay, I can't do this. I got to give up. I wonder what happens if you give up versus if you crank it out and you're successful.
Yeah, I mean, nothing good really ever comes from just giving up. Once you hit that rock bottom, it really shows you how much you really want it, how much you want to succeed.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will quit, and it just ends up not being worth it for them. But looking back at it, now it's like, I wish I did an extra hour of marketing. I wish I set up an extra estimate, because down the line, it's not going to really matter what you did back then if you just quit, but right now it's paying dividends for me, being able to stick it out.
Yeah, so let's get into that, because I know a little bit about your work history, and I'm thinking about my beautiful, angelic, wonderful goddaughter, who's, I think, on month 2 or 3 of looking for a job, and she was so frustrated like 3 weeks into it. And she worked here at our office. I told her she wasn't allowed to do that anymore. She didn't really look for jobs over the course of the summer. And I told her, don't worry about it, take your break. And then she started looking for the job, and she was getting a little down and losing confidence because it didn't happen immediately. And you had a similar experience. You get out of college, and you bought your car wash in college or after college?
It was in college. It was during my junior and senior year of college that I ran it. And then by the time I graduated college, I moved down to San Diego and started, doing tech sales.
Okay, so you made enough money at CollegeWorks, saved up, buy a car wash, great investment. And you got another family member running that now that you're in partnership with. You decide you want to move down and start this different career. And you start off at cyber security, tech sales business. And 4 months in, it's not really a good fit. And you leave. And probably didn't feel good, and probably felt depressed, and probably were wondering, why did I move to San Diego, and what's going on with my life? And then you start going through the process of getting another job, and now you got this sweet job at iMatrix, and you're on this path from sales development resource, which is marketing. You've done it before, you didn't like it, didn't love it then, but it's a step in the next direction to becoming an account executive, a manager, and maybe never even starting your own business, becoming an executive at iMatrix because you like working there so much. How did failure early in life, at the CollegeWorks, or probably the CollegeWorks is a good one, where nothing seemed to be going, even worse when you're good and then you're bad, go 3 for 5 and then nothing, even worse than me, I went 0 for 24. How did that failure, or that lack of success, maybe a better phrase, help you with having to leave one company and then that tedious job search that tends to take a lot longer than people think it will take?
Yeah, I didn't realize how long the job search really is. Your goddaughter that's been searching for 2, 3 months. The reason why I was able to get this job is because I considered the unemployment a full-time job, making a full-time job to find what I want to do and find that right, business. You shouldn't expect to go into your first interview and then get that job. Like, you're going to, like how I did, interview with 4 or 5 different companies, and then finally get the one that I'm excited for.
Yeah, and so she put some time in. So first she didn't do anything. Then she got an interview with the company from me and put all her eggs in that basket. Turns out the company is nowhere near as big as we thought it was. It had like 20 employees. They weren't hiring. So she got another interview from me. That didn't work out either. And she was kind of counting on that. And then the reality set in, and I think she had over 100 companies that talked to her after getting her resume, and she sent out hundreds of resumes. She went to Arizona because she wants to live in Arizona. She's been there for weeks. She's I mean, it's like literally 25 resumes to one call and 10 calls to one in-person meeting. And, through this, there's the frustration, but there's also the practice. And she wasn't very confident. And she wasn't doing well, visibly well when it comes to, sitting in an interview setting. You're not thinking this person's going to just take charge, but now she is. Through the process, now she is. So you only had to interview with 5 companies to get this sweet job, partially because you had a great resume. If someone's coming out of college and they're not quite on the edge of excellence yet, and they haven't done some things, it might take longer, but you'd failed before and you'd been through it before, and that kind of gave you confidence. Did you ever give up? Did you ever think it was never going to work out and you're going to have to move back in with mom and dad?
No, I didn't want to give myself the option of giving up and going back to Chico and living with my parents again. I didn't want to give myself that option because it means that I failed, and I knew that in 5 years, when I'm doing good again, it means that I didn't try hard enough. You could always feel bad about yourself not getting the job opportunities that you want, or not having your entry level position be exactly what you want to do for a career. But at the end of the day, you have to just kind of realize that, hey, I'm going to have to work extra hard to get what I want. And that's kind of how I thought of it. I didn't want to give myself another option. I knew that I had to make rent. I have to stay here and, figure it out.
Yeah, you're out of college, and right out of college, graduated in 2022. You had the wonderful COVID experience in college. But if you're listening right now and you haven't had the experiences, it's time to go get them. The success is about learning how to deal with failures. Finding your career is about trying things out that maybe you don't want to do, and figuring out what you do want to do. Jacob went into finance and information systems and found sales. So you're listening to the podcast right now. Probably is not going to be sales that you find. What is it? You got to go try some things out. So now you're in this sales development resource position at iMatrix. And iMatrix, I think I got it right. They're helping medical clinics, veterinary clinics be visible online, visible to their consumers, helping generate reviews, helping generate leads. And you're going to these organizations and helping them see the opportunity to work with iMatrix, right?
Yeah, exactly. As a whole, it's a digital marketing solution through different types of people in the healthcare field. So, we just want to help.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, yeah, you hit it pretty spot on. We're doing lots of different services for them in order to really help increase revenue for their business and market themselves better. Doctors most of the time aren't businessmen, so we help that side of the business for them.
Yeah, a lot of doctors are doctors, and they didn't take the steps to be business people that are doctors. Now, some of them did. A lot of veterinarians, they don't want to do. Some of them don't want to do that. So you're coming in, and you said, and I think this sums up sales pretty well. It's you're building a relationship out of respect, out of desire to help, out of lifting, right? That's what a good salesperson is. You're not coming in to sell some crap that nobody wants. That's a bad salesperson. You're helping people understand how their problem will be solved by whatever you're selling. And it could be any number of things. In your case, it's a tech platform for marketing. And then you develop a relationship where you're continuing to solve their problem. And so you found out through all your experiences that you already said, love relationships. I know you like helping people. You were a district manager, which is a job. You could have done it again and, just made a bunch of money for yourself, but you want to lift other people. And through that process, you've identified sales as something that will allow you to exercise, I guess it would be your values and your passions, making relationships, helping the world, helping people. And then, as you said, as a byproduct, you get paid. And the thing to remember about sales, if you're listening right now, it's not, salespeople make a lot of money. I had a friend in college 30 years ago make $1 million a year selling disk storage. There's a lot of times sales is the highest paid position in any company, but you don't get paid usually if you're not sincere. if you're not really trying to listen and solve some problems. If you're pushing crap on people, you don't make the money. You got to be passionate about it. You got to be loving it. You got to look forward to helping these people in this sincere way because they can see it, right? They're not going to come back for more if they don't see that you, Jacob, are solving their problems.
Yeah, for a lack of better terms, people will see through the bullshit.
Yeah.
If you're just trying to be a sleazy salesman and not actually selling them a product that they need, then they're going to see through that. Sometimes you'll be able to make a sale, but I don't think that doesn't make me feel good selling something that I don't even, understand or I even think is worth buying.
Yeah, because it's your definition of excellence. You're not
Yeah,
excellent unless you're proud of yourself.
exactly.
That's the key. According to you, you got to be proud of yourself. And you're back in the grind. You're in the marketing role, and maybe marketing isn't your favorite thing, but you need to know how to do it. You need to be good at it. You need to relate to it. So you then move into the account executive role. And I'm just describing the process for people listening. And is this the process at your company? You start off in the marketing role. You move out of that fast. You want to, some people are going to stay in it forever because they love it, but that's a step to the account executive role where you're dealing with these executives that you now know how to relate to because of your experience and your degree and, doing the marketing. And then the next role would be sales manager. And where does it go from there at iMatrix?
There from iMatrix is just becoming more of like a sales manager, becoming the head of sales, that type of stuff. Other than that, I'm not too sure.
So sales manager, VP of sales. Well, after that, my good buddy, you get to be the president. You get to be the president. And then you don't have to go through the whole process of starting a business. You just get to move into the president role at iMatrix. I hope he's listening right now because we got a good candidate. And by the way, I don't know if this is sexual harassment because you don't work for me anymore, but I did just take a picture of you talking to me and send it to my goddaughter, letting her know that you are super cool and single. So who knows what's going to happen here. So how did you find out that you loved sales though? How did you figure that out? Especially through the times when maybe you weren't successful and didn't love it.
When I first found out that I love sales is when I made that first deal. It was just really exciting getting that opportunity to like actually put pen to paper. There's really no better feeling to me. It's just like a hit of dopamine, being able to have that feeling of it's in the books, we're signing paper, you're giving me a check. That's where I knew that I first really liked it. And then continuing to do that, it's still just like a really great feeling being able to connect with that person. And then being able to know that, hey, I just made a new friend through business.
Yeah. So my wife was good at sales, but she's the wrong personality type. If you listen to the DISC episode, I think it's number 4. I know you've done a DISC test with me before. She's a CS, the opposite of sales. She doesn't like to influence. She doesn't like to drive, but she was good at it, right? She was good at sales. And, while she was doing it, you get that instant reward. It's like you get a close, you get a bigger deal. You're constantly getting rewarded for your effort with these little kind of check marks. Hey, you're doing a good job, Jacob. Hey, you're doing a good job, which is one of the cool parts of sales. In other jobs, my job, I just sit and talk on the phone all the time. I get rewarded by talking to people like you that are successful, by the sparkle in their eyes. So I take it all back. I get rewarded all the time. But there is something cool about the result of sales. But really for you, it's not the check or the deposit. That's a symbol that you've done the most excellent job helping them. You've done the most excellent job matching your company's services with what they need. You've done the most excellent job explaining to them that this is going to change their business, right?
Yeah. So the money is, like how you said, a byproduct of the sales. It's one of those things where it's like instant gratification, here and there. But then long term, it's knowing that you're making effect on these people's lives. Again, it's creating that network through College Works. Yeah, it was great, meeting you and meeting, Rob and all these different people that were the managers. But it was also really cool being able to, by the end of the project, having these connections with these, family members and stuff like that, these single family homes that were painting their house, it's like, well, it's cool that now I can see them out in public and know that we have a good relationship. It's like, hey, he painted my house, but he's also a really cool guy.
You better do a good job when you've been born and raised in that town and it's a small town, because you're going to see them around and they're a cool guy and they know you're doing a good job. So, and one of my guests said, your network is your net worth. You've touched all these people and just served them so well. Now they're advocates for you. They're stakeholders in your future. I'm a stakeholder in your future for all the time that we had together, because I want to see you do well because of the values I see in my case working with you, in their case, the value that you deliver to them.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really great statement. Your network is also your net worth. Without College Works, I wouldn't have been able to know all of these people and these really successful paths, just because coming from a small town like Chico, there's not a lot of employment opportunities for people in their 20s. There's just realistically not, unless you go into a family business. And I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to make a name for myself before considering something like that. So, coming from a small town, it was really helpful being able to gain a network of people all across the country.
Yeah, yeah. So you have this life, and it's not a long life because you just graduated from college, but you have this life of trying things out, looking to see how it aligns, finding what you like, delivering value, and then the hard work and the patience to get through the tough times, which makes me think of my favorite question. When you look way, way, way back, how old are you now? 25?
22.
Oh my God, you graduated from college early too. When you look way back on, maybe in your teens or maybe even in your early 20s, what sacrifice do you remember making that you really thought was a sacrifice and you kind of thought about, and maybe you weren't going to do it, but you did it, and you can't believe you're doing this because you're giving up something great, and you look back and you go, thank God I did that?
Yeah, what comes to mind is knowing that my friends who weren't doing internships, they were during the summer especially, they're just hanging out, they're just drinking, they're just going to pool parties. But for me, I never had the option to go and just hang out during the day. It's like I have some work to do, and then I know I got to be up early, so I can't hang out at night either. Maybe they'll go to a house party at night. And of course, it sounds really fun. And of course, I wanted to be there, but I knew it was a sacrifice that I had to make. So I'd go and hang out with them for 30 minutes to an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. But I wasn't going to, get super drunk and then miss, my appointment the next day at 7 a.m.
It's a sacrifice, but it's a non-sacrifice because you balance. You don't have to go to the party for 7 hours. Go for 2. Get your shit done.
Exactly. It was like, hey, I can go still see my friends. They're just going to be hanging out for a little bit longer than me. And looking back at it, do we really remember and we really cherish those experiences of hanging out all day, just not doing anything, sitting on the couch? But when I look back at it, I missed those opportunities, but it's because I knew I was helping myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't remember those times hanging out on the couch. Maybe there's 1 or 2 that you remember, but you remember the rejection, you remember the failure, you remember the deposit check, you remember the success, you remember the growth. When you're doing something, and it's productive, you remember it more than just another day at the party. And I hope that, people hear that. It's not a sacrifice, it's balance. Have you heard my story on that though?
No, tell me.
Okay, so I'm in Santa Barbara. I lived across the street from the Sigma Chi house, and a bunch of my buddies were in the Sigma Chi house, and they used to give me so much crap. Stewie, what are you doing? Stewie, why are you working? Stewie, you're working all the time. And they would just heckle me. Now, that was when I came home for lunch because I had no money. So I had this crappy Subaru that I didn't even pay for. I worked for it. It was $400 for sale for $500, and I worked it off because I had no money. And I'd drive out and do my work, and I was pretty much sucking. And then I'd come back and I'd eat potatoes or noodles because that's all I could afford. And when I came back for lunch, because I couldn't afford to go to McDonald's or anything, I was just getting heckled by these guys. And there was this guy, Aaron, that would heckle me the most. He was a year older. He was from Laguna Beach. He had all the advantages in the world. He had money. His parents had money. He had connections. They'd say, Stewie, it doesn't matter what you know. It matters who you know. Why are you working so hard? Let's go drinking. And then I'd show up, way later, and I'd have to leave early. Why are you leaving, Stewie? Just giving me shit. And this one guy, Aaron, I didn't really like him, but he always stuck with me because he gave me the most shit. And when I was 29 years old, I had to go to the Surf and Sand Hotel down in Laguna Beach for this big entrepreneurs function. And I think I was president of the chapter at 29 years old, eventually global chairman at also a young age. And I pull up at the valet in my red convertible Ferrari that I had when I was 29 years old, because I was doing what you were doing, working and kicking ass and sacrificing. And Aaron was the valet. And I get out and he's like, Stewie, what's up? And I was like, oh my God, there's Aaron. And then we went into the before you go into the banquet room for the meal, there's the foyer where you're having drinks. And for some reason he'd moved from it must have been short staffed. Then he's working kind of as a bar back. And then the capper was, I'm sitting having my meal and his arm comes to take my plate. And I said to my wife, I'm like, God, I'm so embarrassed about this. Feel so bad. And she's like, why are you embarrassed? Why are you? And I was so self-conscious. And I've never forgotten that the guys that were heckling me for trying to get ahead in life and the guys with all the connections weren't ahead in life. The guy came from New Mexico with nothing was, because it doesn't matter what you know or who you know. It matters what you do with what you know and who you know.
Exactly. And I mean, that must have been a pretty sweet feeling, call it narcissism, call it whatever you want, but it's cool being able to be, many years after that interaction with him giving you shit, and you're like, hey, look at me now. You doubted me, and this is why I was doing it. It was for this moment.
The weird part, it wasn't the cool moment. And I like I said, I always wanted to rub it in people's faces back in the day. It wasn't a cool moment, but it was I felt bad for the guy. And I felt like he had he was 30, like he'd blown a few years. It wasn't really a source of pride, but it did hit me that, okay, this thing about working and this thing about trying, and I have a lot of balance and spend time with family and the community and all that. But how you do one thing is how you do everything. And that guy was screwing around all the time. And I have a lot of fun and I screw around a lot, but I'm productive while I'm screwing out. Interesting. We have the same story. And Jacob, I really appreciate you making time to come share the path to sales success, the path to finding a job, some of your insights. I appreciate all the great things you said about College Works as well. Thank you so much for coming on the Edge of Excellence.
Thanks a lot, Matt. I had a lot of fun today.